Hi, if we could come to order. Welcome to the December 8th, 2014 meeting of the Morongo Basin Municipal Advisory Council. If we would mind, please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And our newly elected secretary, Mary Helen Tuttle, is home ill. And could we rely on our outgoing secretary to call roll? She's sick.
Okay. When I call your name, please say present and also where you are representing. Jack Dugan?
He's excused.
Excused. Elizabeth Carmen? She's here. She's at the bathroom. Yucca Mesa. Mike Lipsitz?
Here, Landers.
Mark Lundquist?
Here, Joshua Tree.
Pat Flanagan?
Here, Desert Heights.
Max Rossi here, Wonder Valley. Gail Sorat?
Here, Morongo Valley.
And Mary Helen Tuttle? Excused. Excused. Ill. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now is adoption of the agenda, and there is a change. If everybody's had a chance. If the folks here, members of the public, didn't get an agenda, they're on the table. They're on the table as you come in. And by the way, no one is required to sign in. The sign in puts your name on our email list. So if you want to receive the emails, add your name. If you've been here before and put your name on, you don't need to sign again. If you don't want the emails, don't put your name on the list. We have a change with the agenda, and that is on item, it is our one action item, and that is Resolution MB-MAC 010. And that is a resolution calling for the Planning Commission to require the developers of the Altamira project, the 248-unit gated community going in, planned for Altamira and Joshua Tree, is it asks for a environmental impact report to accompany their proposal. And the resolution was only finalized on Friday, and the developers, reasonably so, asked, could it be delayed for a month? They could not make it here at this meeting. They would like to address it. They'd like to speak to the community again, and it's not unreasonable to reply before we vote. It is not expected in the Planning Commission till at least February. So it's, I think Pat also has an addition to the resolution, but in consideration of that, if you want to mention what that is, I'm not.
Would you want to wait till we get down to J when you read the resolution?
Well, we would adopt the, well, right now we're going to vote on postpone. If we table it now, we'll just skip over J.
Oh, okay, but I want, hello? How about this? Now we go, okay. I just would like to add to the resolution that the population increase is much greater than what they stated in their initial study. It's approximately 13%, which will have an effect on the local schools as well as those surrounding residents. So I'll give you that wording later.
So that means that it can be changed to a degree between now and...
I think between now and the January meeting, the committee should probably meet again and re-review the resolution.
Okay. And
Okay.
make sure that we get it to the developer...
In enough time, yeah.
Okay.
So could we have a motion for same?
Sure, I motion that we table item J on the action items and consider moving this January meeting.
Thank you, Mark.
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
We got comments from the audience.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. We'll back up. Would you like to say something about that? Okay, Mr. Falls. Thomas. Could you take the podium? We can barely hear you.
I would ask on your proposed resolution that the point on real estate be reviewed in depth because it's way off the mark. And you want to look good when you make this presentation. Thank you.
He wanted to make sure that we review the point on the resolution concerning real estate, that he said it was not entirely accurate, not his words, and we will do that. Any other comments? Mr. Swart, Bill.
Is that microphone, is that something you turn on and off, or can you turn it on and leave it on?
I think what he was speaking into was Mr. Stevenson's microphone and not one of these, which when we get to public comments, we'll make sure that they have one of these over there. Did anyone else not hear the comment? Okay, with that, I don't think we're going to go back and vote again. We will skip item J1, and the rest of the agenda is as stands, I believe, unless there are any other changes. Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes from the last meeting, and they're also available from the front desk. Any changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Rick, can we have a motion?
I make a motion
Thank,
to approve the minutes.
thank you, Ms. Carmen.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye, please. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes carry. Do we need public comment on that? That brings us up to call for public comment. And this would be on items not on the agenda. And if you'd like to speak, there are comment cards as you walk in, and I have a handful of them here. Mr. Fick is speaking on an item not on the agenda. Hi. Oh, let's get him a mic. Here.
Is this one work? Is this working? Yes, it's working. Good evening, people. My name is David Fick, Joshua Tree, and I was going to give an update on the Dollar General. I'm part of the JTDBA, which is the Joshua Tree Downtown Business Alliance. And it has been out, but I just want to state that our lawsuit has been appealed. The decision by the judge for a focus DIR to be happened has been appealed on November 26th by Dynamic Development. And we have, JTDBA will be having a meeting soon. We have to decide whether we want to just let it stand and, go to the appeals, or do a cross appeal. And a cross appeal takes some money to do, but we have enough to start that process, so that won't be a problem yet. We have until December 22nd to decide to cross appeal. That's where it stands. Another completely different subject and very, very remotely related to another one is when I was knee-high, 1955, Eugene, Oregon. My father went down for a job interview in Pomona, California for food machinery. And I had one request from him, 3.5, come on. I requested a Mickey Mouse ears. He came back from Southern California with a set of Mickey Mouse ears. And just so people know, the Roy Williams Airport is named after Roy Williams, who designed and invented the Mickey Mouse ears. Thank you. I'll leave it on my...
I might have a tear. Okay. Thank you. Marina West.
This one? Okay. Marina West Landers. So, Planning Commission voted last week 3-2. 3 Inland Empire Supervisorial Districts voted for renewable energy. And under their optics, it was probably a good thing and caused no disruption in their districts whatsoever. But it could be more than that. I made 2 sets of substantive comments during the Land Use Services conditional use process, CEQA, public process, and I was in essence ignored regarding the following. Our Homestead Valley Community Plan was completely disregarded, basically because it doesn't mention solar. The effect on property values and property taxes that provide our local services such as water, ignored. Increase in dust with no meaningful baseline data against which we can measure compliance down the road. Lack of recognition for the effects projects are having on avian species. This is all new data we have to adaptively manage. No robust, durable buffers, landscapes, or otherwise to help mitigate our true concerns. As a matter of fact, this applicant, through the guise of a second, third, whatever investor, wanted zero setback. So, Planning Commission isn't aware or conscious that the conditions that they approve in those permits are even being constructed or implemented. If you, the public, experiences something you question, dust, noise, people out where they don't belong, nighttime work, blading, call somebody, call code enforcement, call building and safety, find out who you're supposed to call. Don't let somebody off the hook. They'll cry they're busy. You must participate in Spark. They claim that's what they're listening to. You've got to get online. You've got to make comments. You don't have to be an expert. Look at what other people say. Think about it in your own terms. I'm not telling you to think the way I do. If you're for these projects, great. Then say why you're for them. And don't just use that, we're going to reduce our footprint, because they're already using it on the other side of the hill, at our expense. The irony, or the other thing I wanted to say is that there are many of us who are working really hard behind the scenes. I wrote letters since June on this project. They've heard from me. They've heard from others, you know the names. They need to hear from everybody else. Because otherwise they're like, yeah, we heard from them, they answered no. We're trying to work with them. I worked on BEAD. I'm almost embarrassed to say there's an ordinance that we supported. We all stood up there and supported it. And then now we're having definition problems. What's a setback? What's a buffer? What's a tortoise? What's mitigation? Oh, please help us comply with this stuff because it's hard to understand. No, it's not. And here's what really aggravates me, because I think downtown they're counting jobs. An hour worked is an hour worked is a job. A guy gets to work. How about our monitoring people? How about our professionals that do archaeology or tortoise or landscape? Aren't those jobs that last locally? So there's a disconnect. The message is not getting through. We're not being listened to as a public, and I'm asking the MAC to work with us on the subcommittee with BEAD to try to figure out a new way to get the message across. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Your efforts are really appreciated, and your services too. Next, we do have Lisa Murphy. Is she here? Okay, she's on her way from work, and she is asked to speak during public comment, and we'll provide some spot later in the meeting. Spider Jane Frankie. I'm sorry, you're speaking on the airport. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's for an agenda. I called you at the wrong time. Julian Gonzalez wants to speak on Altamira, and you know, I think you walked in late. Do you know we pulled that from the agenda and it's tabled till next month?
Oh, okay. Then fine.
Okay. And Margot Sturgis, hi. Hi. I must recognize you.
Hello, everybody. Margot Sturgis from Yucca Valley. Hello, everybody. Yeah. Margot Sturgis of Yucca Valley. I'm up here because, again, I'm really upset. And this is not a Republican and this is not a Democratic issue, but why did Congressman Paul Cook flip-flop on Cadiz? I'm trying to understand that. I'm mad. What are you thinking of, Mr. Cook, Congressman Cook? I mean, he's from our area, supposedly. You know what? I know this is being tape recorded, and he knows that I'm really free to speak my mind about what he's doing, but I think this really crossed the line. I don't know what it is, who he got donations from, allegations of donations, let's make it that way. But I think he needs to be here, and he needs to address us, the citizens of Morongo, and find out why he flip-flopped on Cadiz. I don't understand why and what he did. And if it's politics, we don't need that here. We're in the desert. Water is vital. It's our future. It's the future for our children. And I think Congressman Paul Cook should be on the agenda and explain to us and to the world and to the Morongo Basin and to the voters, to the Republicans, to the Democrats, or the declined states, why he flip-flopped on Cadiz. Thank you. I'm not going to explain the Cadiz situation. I'm going to leave that up to the experts. I know the general overall view, and I leave those things up to Marina and Ms. Flanagan and the experts who know the dates, the times, and the details, or on it. And so if some of them would like to come up and take my minute, I would love to have them do that to clarify the situation. That would be a good idea. Thank you.
Where? There you go. Very quickly, because I haven't thought about this, so I can be really coherent. The Cadiz Corporation wants to mine 50,000 acre-feet per year of water from the Cadiz Valley and ship it to Santa Margarita in Orange County. They feel, mostly feel not really well, they believe that their water studies say that there will be at least 30-some thousand acre-feet of recharge per year. Those of us who live in a desert where we have no effective recharge to our water systems question that. The United States Geologic Survey has given maximum recharge at about 6,000 acre-feet per year. So we seem to have a disconnect between what is sustainable and what is not. And Representative Cook at one point said that he believed that it was unsustainable, that it would rob water from the springs and the ranchers who live in the area, and that he was against the project. Today he feels that it's going to be bringing sufficient jobs to the area that that will override any problems with water that we may have in the future. Essentially, is that correct? Does anybody want to?
That's a nice way.
Thank you for the explanation. Tom O'Kee on, are you speaking on the Bobcats? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thanks for letting me speak. A small contingent of Joshua Tree and Morongo Basin residents went to Van Nuys. The reason why we went is because in the end of January last year, 2013, it was discovered that bobcats were being trapped in our neighborhood along the park boundaries and being killed for their fur. And of course, everybody got really riled up about that, and in October, Governor Brown signed into law AB 1213, the Bobcat Protection Act. And so Joshua Tree particularly, but the Morongo Basin and the residents of California need to thank themselves for doing the job of being active in the call to action to make that happen. And it happened quickly. I mean, from January 29 to October 10 to a law that was enacted and actually put into action January 1 of this year. But the law wasn't completely put into action. The law requires a lot of work. And so the Fish and Wildlife Services and the Fish and Game Commission have been challenged with trying to enact AB 1213, which is very complicated. It calls for boundaries around national monuments, national parks, around state parks, other places, potentially private lands that are reserves and so on. And when they got done figuring out how many places in the state of California that was, there was 288 of them. So they realized this is a daunting task. And then they also realized that there were other limitations. There was things that were brought up, like trapping fees, subsidizing, trapping, and how it actually is managed. And what are the new costs going to be based on all this extra management and all this new planning? And so it's become very convoluted. And we've been watching. And I want everybody to know, there is a certain portion of the law that has gone into effect. Right now, if you're on the south side of Highway 62, you're protected. Everybody on the north side, unfortunately, there is no protection right now. The trapping season opened November 24, so it's in high gear right now. And top dollar cats are on the agenda. And the trappers know that, and they feel the pressure. There was a trapper at the meeting representing trapping. And the group of about 6 of us from Joshua Tree showed up. When the Fish and Wildlife Services group put their proposals out, they didn't include the things that Governor Brown has strengthened the law with. Governor Brown actually strengthened the law. He added, fees should be adjusted. We talked about bag limits, and he also asked about maybe a statewide ban. None of those things were presented. Our group presented that. And in a 3-2 vote, the Fish and Wildlife, Fish and Game Commission voted yes, as that being an option. So once again, Joshua Tree has scored a tremendous victory here because that's on the agenda. A total statewide ban is potentially possible. They want us to ring the bell and show up. There's 3 more meetings coming up that are going to be very important. One in particular when they actually vote as, which resolutions they want. And we're going to be calling everybody, putting on notices. Miriam, have I got everything?
We want people to write and thank the commission for
Yeah. We founded the commission. Can I have just a couple more seconds? Would that be all right? That the commission was very open, and with the logic and the arguments we presented, they really realized that this is 2014. This isn't the old pioneering days, and there's a handful of guys that are basically doing all this damage. And so the mass majority of Californians want this to happen, but we have to show them that, and we have to show them respect that we are appreciative of the fact that they're looking out for all aspects of wildlife management, and they're seeing our argument. And it was good that we were there because they were open to our thoughts, and at the end of the day, they agreed with us. There were 2 that didn't, and they were pretty forceful, and there were people against us, and not just on this, but other things. And so wildlife's under threats. There's a lot of forces against us. It's going to take everybody to get on a little bit, writing some letters, thanking the governor, thanking the commission, telling them how we feel. And so projectbobcat.org is a place to find the information, okay? And anything else that I can add, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I think that's it, unless anyone else has comments not on items not on the agenda. I'm sorry, Dr. Carmen, I know you. Please take the podium. I know you had a card.
My name is Bob Carmen, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the solar ordinance and how precedents are set in planning in general and in particular with the solar ordinance. The easiest thing to understand in terms of development and precedent is, let's say you have a pristine mountain or hillside, Yucca Valley, and people want a view up there, and they don't want any tabletopping and houses. As soon as the first one goes in, that opens the floodgates, and everybody says, hey, you let Joe do it, I want my tabletopping and my house and my view. And if people don't like that, too bad, because if you let him and you don't let me, I'll sue you. That's how it works. I've been through those things as a planning commissioner and writing a general plan, and trust me, that's how it goes. Now, we have a precedent with the solar ordinance in the Victorville area in the unincorporated space out there, and the planning commission for the county and upheld by the supervisors said no to a project out there. Now, whatever the distance is between that proposal and the closest residences sets a precedent. Now, that precedent might change. There might be other projects that are rejected as well with longer distances, but anybody who tries to submit something that has, on flat land, make all those assumptions, that is closer than that distance in that Victorville unincorporated area, or Apple Valley, whichever it was. And you can go on and fool around with Google Earth and figure out the distances. It's not terribly difficult. I did it, so you can do it. So when we start talking about these projects, thank you, I got a minute. When we start talking about these projects, we need to keep that precedence in mind, and that's something that can be added to the objection if the solar farm is close. And I appreciate Marina doing what she does. Thank you.
One last comment, public comment on an item not on the agenda, and that is from Almond Fleck on road grading.
I think I'm just as riled up. Just as riled up as some other people here about no progress on certain things. We're going backward in Wanda Valley as far as the road grading is concerned. It is intensified. It is grading so much, overgrading, that the mesh, the geomesh, is pulled out. So apparently the roads, some of the roads have been repaired in the past. It's a wonderful method to keep the sand down. And I find, huge amounts of it. So I have the evidence that there is overgrading going on. It also is now apparently a desire to have double-sized roads, 2 ways. It never has been a problem when 2 cars were on these sand roads. One goes a little to the side, lets the other one go. It works very well and has been for years. So the dust that is related to this whole grading is doubling now with the double roads, and also I think we are already at full time. The part-time position has turned already, I think, because it is so much grading. Roads where nobody lives are being graded. So I would like to, for the MAC to take up this issue again, because we're not making any headway by addressing the Board of Supervisors directly. So it has to go through the MAP, and I would like to be on the agenda next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Almut. As you and I spoke this afternoon on the phone, just to make a follow-up to that, I did contact the grading group there and at the Wonder Valley. They have gone back over the mesh that was pulled up and put dirt over it and knocked down some of the dirt from the berms. That's not a permanent solution, but did address that with them. The question is that the repairing of the roads is going to require more funding, because it's not just a matter of removing dirt. You have to lay a layer of gravel and so forth. So we had recommended to the MAC that we approach the superintendent and ask that the commission on roads be recommissioned again or reestablished again, because these are issues which are prevailing throughout Wonder Valley and even in other places. But Ahmed is correct in that the dust that goes up in the air really is affecting people even in our breathing. Long-term, breathing this dirt and this dust in the air is also harmful to the people out there.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who commented. There'll be other opportunities to comment later in the meeting. Now we can move to public safety reports, and we have Mike Snow with us from his battalion chief for County Fire. Chief Gary Bush was promoted to division chief and moved on. Welcome.
Yeah, we finally got rid of Gary on. I congratulate Gary for his accomplishments. He beat me out on the test. But that's not to say that we won't have more opportunities here in the near future, as my boss is looking to retire himself in March. So we'll see where it goes from there. Just point of clarification, I did leave earlier to go on a call. Captain Mondary back here pointed out that I had a Starbucks coffee with me when I walked back in. So he thought I jetted down to Yucca to get the Starbucks before I came back. So just point of clarification there. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a New Year to all of you out there. I hope all of you are set up for your holiday and good spirits with your family. Just a brief report tonight surrounding the communities of Yucca Mesa, Landers, Johnson Valley, Joshua Tree, and Wonder Valley. Summary report for November. Emergency responses in Johnson Valley were 3. Joshua Tree, we run 142 incidents. And Wonder Valley, we responded to 24. In Landers, we had 6 incidents. We had no incidents in Pioneer Town or the Rincon area. And on the Yucca Mesa area, we responded to 73 calls for a total of 248 calls out of our entire division that ran 673 calls for November. Response summary for that, of those calls, we responded to 8 fires, 187 EMS related incidents, 3 hazardous conditions, 13 service calls, 34 good intent calls, 3 false alarm, and 1 call due to severe weather. And for most of you may remember that, where we had flooding incident here in Joshua Tree, where we sadly lost the life of one of our community members. Which brings me to a solid point that we need to remind our friends, neighbors, and ourselves that when we come across a flooded section of the road, that we do not cross those pathways. We find an alternate way of getting around somewhere, or at the very least, wait until the rain recedes and you'll be able to go on your way again safely. Don't take the chance in crossing a flooded roadway and not knowing what's underneath you. Of the fire responses that we had, we did have a loss of structure to a residence in the Joshua Tree area at an estimated value of $185,000. And just some of the community events that you're aware of. This is the season for us to give to our younger and less fortunate that are out there in the community. So on each Saturday from 10 to 4, the firefighters are out in front of the Walmart facility for the Fill the Firefighter boot and fire truck campaign. So if you would please stop by and make a unwrapped gift donation, that would be wonderful for those that need gifts. Outside of that, we know that it is the holiday season, so some of our holiday safety tips, obviously, if you have a live tree, make sure that it keeps well watered, that you have good electrical wiring, particularly in the lighting element of your trees, and that you have operational smoke detectors in the house, which are going to be critical for those early warning signals. And that's all I have from the fire department. Are there any questions from the audience or the board? Yes, ma'am.
I have a burning permit. I live in Wonder Valley.
Okay.
And recently I found that I can't do it because of air quality. This ties in with the roads.
Yes.
But I was also told that Wonder Valley does not have a station where they actually do air quality tests. It is a large area. So is there any way that the fire department can make a recommendation that Wonder Valley, with a lot of dirt roads, and other communities too, get their own tests for air quality?
That's a request that would actually have to go through the AQMD to ask them to come out and survey the area and provide that assessment. We do have, however, our own jurisdiction as far as where we allow burning in permitted areas. So that is something that I could ask or run through our fire marshal division to see if there's any way that we can make some exceptions to local area communities to allow that burning. But in most circumstances, the allowable burning is managed from the aspect of the AQMD so that we remain you know, in the high pollutant areas, that we keep those air quality issues in check.
That is my main concern, that we have accurate statistics about it and not a huge area and an average of it. Because Wonder Valley is now increasing
Yes.
the conditions that are detrimental.
Yeah, that would be a question for the Mojave Desert AQMD to ask them to follow up on that.
Thank you, Chief Snow.
Thank you.
And could the minutes reflect the Starbucks situation too accurately? Thank you. We have CHP Lieutenant Eric Robles and Public Information Officer Joan Griffin. Hi, thanks for coming.
Too much tonight. I just wanted to start off by thanking everyone who's been helping out with our toy drive, the Better Toy Drive, the Chips for Kids toy drive. Yesterday, we collected a lot of toys out in front of Walmart from 10 to 4, and I hope we beat them, you know. We're going to be out in front of Walmart again on Wednesday from 10 to 4, and anytime you want to bring toys to the Highway Patrol station or give them to a Highway Patrol officer, I promise you we're going to find a good home. We keep all the toys local up here. We have specific families that are referred to us by certain agencies, and we take care of those families. And then if we have any left over, we give them to the local foster agencies and groups that need toys year round. So you bring us a toy, I'll find a good home for it. We try to match up a kid with a toy. If you want to give the toys to the fire department, I'm sure that they'll find somebody to give them to also. But once again, I was really overwhelmed yesterday with the amount of toys we got. I wasn't expecting to get that number. That was way more than we expected, but it's still not enough. We won 1,000 toys this year. We had about 800 last year, and so bring them on. Bring them to me. I want to remind everyone, I'm sure you haven't forgotten, but Christmas is coming up and the new year. And there's going to be a lot of people out on the roads that shouldn't be drinking and driving. And be careful, watch yourselves out there. Please don't drink and drive. If you feel any impairment at all, if you feel a buzz, you're under the influence. And the fatalities seem to go up around the holidays and the weekends, but especially around the holidays. And we don't want to see people's Christmases ruined for the rest of their lives because their loved one was killed by a drunk driver or an impaired driver with the prescription medications, drug driving. It's the statistics. I don't give them out because I think they're underreported. Really, I really do think they're underreported. So
please don't drink and drive. Please don't use your medication and drive, and be careful out there. The majority of fatalities occur between midnight and 3, so stay off the roads then. It might help you out a little. We have to be out there, but we'll try to, not be part of the problem. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
There was YouTube, it was done by KSEC down below on Highway 62. I'd like your opinion. Does Highway 62 now the highway of death?
I don't really have an opinion as to whether Highway 62 is the highway of death, because I don't have the statistics to back it up. I don't know. You can't compare apples to oranges. We need to be worried about our problem. And our problem, one death is too many as far as I'm concerned. So if we can prevent one death from occurring, that's what we shoot for, 0. But as far as whether we're the deadliest highway, I don't really have the statistics to back that up either way. So, but that was a good question. The guy went on a ride along with us, so it was the guy who went on a ride along with us that did a story about it.
He did, yeah. Well, what was extraordinary is it was done very well, it was researched very well. But from the top of the grade to the bottom of the grade, the colored dots connected all the way down. And each one of those were an accident. That's just, after 40 years, that was extraordinary.
Once again, 1 is too many. So if we can get that number down to 0, and all of us can do our part. We can pay attention when we're driving. We can wear our seatbelts. We can not drink and drive. We can slow down, not be in a hurry to get places, not tailgate, not drive like a jerk, not drive aggressively, right? Okay, on my way to work this morning, right? 3 guys I saw just driving like jerks. For what? So we don't need to do that, right? So most of us in here don't do that. But tell your friends out there not to drive that way. Yes, sir.
I haven't seen the radar speed wagon out in a while. What's up with that?
Well, it's been out. Yeah. We try to put it out. We try to put it out as often as we can, and I'm not going to make an excuse, but it takes 2 people to go take it out for safety reasons, 2 people to go pick it up, and we don't always have the people to do that, the manpower to do it. So we do try to get it out as often as we can, but and it moves around because we have 1, so it does move around quite a bit.
Thank you.
I just have 2 things to say about Officer Griffin. One, I can't argue about the toy thing because she has a taser. And every time I come to work, she tases me, so.
Thank you. Another one with a taser, Captain Dale Mondary. Chief of Police, 29 Palms and Yucca Valley.
But I actually, just for a point of order, I actually don't carry a taser. I'm afraid I might tase too many of my employees. So, we actually are not doing a toy drive. We may be the only ones not. However, what we did do actually yesterday morning is our Shop with a Cop. And this is a program that our labor union puts on, and I know that we do solicit money from the community. So if any of you donated to our organization, thank you very much. We actually identified, I think it was about 20 children in the community. We work collaboratively with the school district, CPS. They identify some children for us, and then everybody gets $200 to spend. And they are partnered with a sheriff's deputy. We had CHP, BLM that came and helped us, and their only criteria is half of the money they have to spend on clothes for themselves. And we even put limitations on the clothes, i.e. why we don't follow them into the dressing room. We can take a pretty good look at them and know whether their waist size is a 28 or if it's a 54. So if they're trying to buy a size 54 pair of pants, we say, oh no, that's not happening. But thank you, and that is a wonderful event, very, very touching, that I got the opportunity. I've participated in the past, but it's great that we're actually helping our local community with that. I kind of want to focus a couple of things about what Officer Griffin had already talked about, because I noticed this more in addition to the crazy driving. When I go home in the evening, it's dusk or dark, and when I leave in the morning, sometimes if I'm driving down below, it'll be at dawn. Get your headlights on. I try to turn mine on all the time. They're just much easier seen. But I know last week on at least 2 different occasions during the evening, I actually almost cut somebody off before I realized there was a car there, because it was dark and they did not have their headlights on. So remember to make sure that you're putting your headlights on. And then also, since it is Christmas time, is that my 3 minutes are up, or? Okay. I mean, it's not going to stop me. I'm going to keep talking. So I was going to tell you, just go ahead and turn the timer off. But it is Christmas time. And, ladies, I would encourage you to make sure that when you're shopping, that you maybe carry a clutch instead of your big bag. If you are going to carry a large purse, make sure that you keep it closed. And do not leave it unattended in your shopping cart, because while it's sitting there open and you're looking at clothing or other Christmas gifts, somebody's going to walk by and just take your wallet straight out of your bag. So make sure that you have it with you. Don't leave it in your shopping cart. Gentlemen, I would encourage you to carry your wallet in your front pocket instead of your back pocket. And then when you're sitting down, it's actually better for your posture. If you keep that in your front pocket, that'll help you from becoming a victim. And then when you put your gifts in the car, if you're like me, we will buy something. I do not want to carry it around the rest of the day. I almost immediately take it out and put it in the car if we're going to be shopping from store to store. Put it in the trunk. If you're going to put it in the back seat, try to cover it. I guarantee you, if you buy a new TV, iPad, computer, and you leave that laying in your back seat of your car, that you will not only come out to a broken window on your car, but a missing nice electronic device or something valuable as well. So I would encourage you to try to put those items in the trunk of your car, or at least get them covered up somehow so that people walking through are not doing their own types of shopping. And that's all I have, unless anybody has a question for me. Yes, ma'am.
I came upon an accident. I wasn't the first person there, but there was debris in the road, and the individuals who had been in the accident were clearing debris off the road so people could pass through. Is that really what you're supposed to do?
No. And maybe these guys have, well, in my opinion, it's not. Yeah, good idea. The question was that she had came across an accident and she noticed that people were getting the debris out of the roadway, and if that's what they should do. And it is not. It just comes down to a safety issue. You're going to get yourself ran over. Just get your vehicles off the side of the road. You want to field this one, Joan?
That's all I was going to say. Is just
Yeah.
Get yourself and the car out of the road, but don't worry about the stuff.
Yeah, we'll get that out of there, later. And I mean, I don't want to say we're experts at it, but we have people that will come out and get it out of there. And while that's nice of them to do, don't risk your personal safety just to get a headlight or a license plate or a bumper out of the road. Hopefully people will slow down. And if not, they can pull over, and then CHP will take an accident for them hitting a loose object in the road.
But we'd rather take another accident on someone hitting an object rather than hitting you.
Yeah.
So.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to add, would people please remind and themselves, if they're walking next to a road, to either stay far enough away from the road so that somebody who's not quite together doesn't hit you, or to wear reflective clothing. We saw a guy on a bicycle wearing just a jacket that was all reflective, and you could see him so much better than the guy in front of him that didn't have anything special on.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And whether they're kids or adults or not, or walking, and again, especially because, you know, because of the time change, it's darker earlier. So send your kids to school in light colored clothing, especially if they're going to be at after school events and walking home. And I know it's cold and they're going to need their jackets, but if they can wear something light or again, reflective, even if you got to put a piece of reflective tape on the back of it yourself, put it on there. It's going to save their lives. All right, thank you.
And we have two informational items this morning. Thanks to all of you for coming for public safety reports. Thanks. You're free to stay, of course. Two informational items tonight. We have both Bob Tyke from High Desert Medical Center, who had amazing news this week, and which we will all be voting on in the coming this coming spring, I think. I know he'll tell you more about that. And we also have Jess Mellon from NextEra Solar, who will talk about the project plan for Joshua Tree. But first, Mr. Tyke, CEO, CFO, High Desert Memorial Healthcare District.
Hear me? There you go. My name is Bob Tyke. I'm the CEO of the High Desert Memorial Healthcare District, and I'm here tonight to give you a update on where the district is in its search for an affiliation partner. There has been a lot of public meetings, board meetings, and there have been articles in the newspaper, and so tonight what I like to do is go through and give you an update as to where we are currently. Just a little bit of a snapshot as to the district. The district is a public health care district, 1,800 square miles, 5 elected board members. We serve around 68,000 people within the Morongo Basin. The district has 179 beds, which is the 59-bed hospital, and 120-bed continuing care center, which is a skilled nursing facility. $60 million annual budget, a little over 600 employees, 770 physicians on staff, and they cover basically 20 medical specialties. We have a highly qualified emergency department. In fact, all of our emergency department physicians are board certified, 4-bed intensive care unit, and deliver around 600 babies a year. We also, about a year and a half ago, took on a county contract for outpatient behavioral health services. We also have home health and hospice, outpatient rehab services, and we have the family medical clinics in Yucca Valley and 29 Palms, and those are actually federally qualified health centers, which is a federal designation which allows us to serve Medi-Cal and Medicare, as well as uninsured members of the public. Airway Imaging and Surgery Center in Yucca Valley, and a medical specialty center in Airway, where we're trying to bring up different specialists into the community for at least a day a week, sometimes more than that, since that's one of the issues that the district has, is lack of specialists.
What's ENT?
Ear, nose, and throat. We also have additional technologies. We have a CT and an MRI, and just installed a digital mammography machine, which is the picture on the right. The digital mammography is actually a 3-dimensional digital mammography. Prior to that, we only had analog, which is old technology. Digital brings us up to state-of-the-art And there it is. I should have pushed the button. There you go. One of the big selling points of the 3D mammography machine is that it is so specific, and I have no expertise in this, but it is so specific that it has a 40% reduction in callbacks. Often when mammography test is done, there are shadows, there are hidden areas that the radiologist needs to call the patient back and either do a ultrasound or do an additional test. So this allows us to do less tests and therefore less radiation. What does the district bring to the community? We provide 3.4, this is as of fiscal year 13, $3.4 million worth of uncompensated charity care. We are the third largest employer in the area. We have a payroll of $27.5 million. Also use local vendors to a tune of about $4 million. Interestingly enough, we only receive $585,000 from property taxes on an annual basis. When you look at the payroll, an average payroll for the district is $1.1 million, and we do 26 of those a year. So you can see that the property tax piece covers about half of one payroll. One of the challenges that we have is this down at the bottom, out-migration. 45% of all health care leaves the basin for a variety of reasons. People go down the hill because we don't have the services here. We don't have an ear, nose, and throat physician. We don't have a urologist. We only have a little bit of GI. So we're missing specialties that cause people to go down the hill for specialties. They are transferred historically either to Desert Regional or often Loma Linda. There are certain things that we will never do up here in the high desert. We won't do oncology. We won't have heart transplants in cardiology. So some of those things are going to go out of the district no matter what. But we have a loss here because of our inability to recruit and retain specialists here in the basin. People go down the hill, and once they leave, there have been studies done that once you leave an area for specialist service, you leave the area for primary care. And so you just continually drain the resources. And besides, it goes to a different county. So for all the good things we do, people wondered, so why is it that you're looking to affiliate with somebody else? This chart starts in 2007. And in 2007, we lost a little over $500,000. This spike in 2009, the district received a donation from a family of about $8 million. So that drove this number up. So it's an artificial spike. But you can see that from that point on, it has continued down. It has continued down because the volumes have decreased. We don't have the specialists, so a lot of people go down the hill, as I've said. The numbers have gotten worse over time because providing health care in this day and age is more difficult every day. We are paid every year less by Medicare or Medi-Cal than we were the year before. Nobody ever pays you more than they did in the past. Each of these payers continually squeeze, either they start with hospitals and then they move to physicians in order to balance the Medicare budgets and the state budgets. So these areas are things that the board looked at, our district board looked at between 12 and 13, actually, and in 13, what could we do? And there were two options that we thought we had. One was to float a parcel tax, so to tax the members of the community. And we went out and did a phone survey to see if individuals were willing to pony up somewhere between $50 and $100 per parcel on an annual basis. And not surprisingly, the answer that we got was really, no, we don't want any more taxes. So we took that one off the table, which then led us to an affiliation. And an affiliation has a variety of meanings. It can be a purchase, it can be a long-term lease, it can be a management contract, it can be a joint venture. The option that we were leading to, because you cannot sell a healthcare district. The district will always remain. So we went out and hired an organization to help us in the process of finding somebody who would be interested in doing business with High Desert. Now, before I get into the actual proposal, both of these proposals that we received in November were tied to something called QAF, which is Quality Assurance Fund. And the QAF is a state program that helps those hospitals that have high Medi-Cal utilization. There are 47 states that have programs much like the QAF. As a district hospital, we were not eligible to participate in this. When the law was written about 10, 11 years ago, district hospitals were exempt from that, were cut out of that. I have no idea why that was, but that's a fact. If we become leased by another organization, then the operations of the organization become a private hospital, not a district hospital, and therefore will be eligible for this money. So the organization that comes in to lease High Desert's operations will have access to the QAF funds as well. And as you can see, there's about $10 billion that go to California hospitals on an annual basis. Or I take that back, not on an annual basis, but on a 3-year program. Each of these QAF programs run for 3 years. If the key part of this is we make this affiliation take place for calendar 15, assuming that the deal was done by the end of March, there would be $10.7 million available for the new organization. In calendar 2016, 15, a little over 15.5 million. So there's $26 million out there for the organization who comes in to participate with us. Okay, so we had 2 organizations that submitted letters of intent. Tenet Healthcare Corporation, which is a publicly traded company out of Dallas. They have 80 hospitals. I think they have 12 in the state of California. And the other organization was called Strategic Global Management. They are a small California hospital system. They have 7 hospitals. And they've got 1 in Victorville, 1 in Hemet, 1 in Menifee, and 4 in Orange County. They are not publicly traded. They are mainly, the main stockholder is a physician in Hemet who funds most of this. So both of those organizations put together letters of intent. The letters of intent came to the board. They were analyzed. Both organizations made presentations in November. After they saw each other's presentations, they both came back and improved their offers, which is interesting. They made another presentation in December, actually on December 3rd. The Camden group, which is the group we hired to help us in this process, presented the revised letters of intent, and the board voted 5-0 to pick Tenet as the organization that we want to affiliate with. And now this starts the process of actually taking the letter of intent, which is a non-binding document, and putting it into a legal document. So the bottom line, or the basic of these proposals, Tenet will pay the district $2 million a year for the lease of their operations. The lease is a 30-year lease, which is exactly what they have for Desert Regional. They leased that for 30 years, and I think they signed that lease in 1997, if I'm not mistaken. There's additional funding that will go to the district. The QAF money that I talked about in the past, if it's $15 million a year, then 30% less the $2 million lease goes to the district. If it's less than 15 million, a smaller percentage, less the 2 million, goes to the district. Each of the organizations, well, we don't need to talk about each of them. Tenet has committed within the first 3 years to invest about $32 million in the organization. 17 million in capital projects, and these are things that we have presented to them. I mean, upgrades of equipment, simple things such as putting new roofs on all our buildings. It will cost us about $750,000 to almost $1 million to put a new roof on each one of the buildings that the district owns. And interestingly enough, we've put this into our budget every year for the last probably 10 years. But since it never rains in the district, nobody ever cares about the roof until it rains in the district. And then we spend a fair amount of money patching those holes. So $17 million in capital for the first 3 years. They will convert the computer system that we have currently to the computer system that they use in all of their hospitals, which is a system by the name of Cerner. So they've committed $10 million for that, and $5 million to recruit physicians. This one in and of itself is probably one of the most important pieces, because for us to become a profitable organization, we need those specialties that we don't have now. And because Tenet has a hospital in Palm Springs, it's much easier for them to recruit a physician. So say they recruit a urologist. We probably don't have enough people up here to support a full-time urologist 5 days a week. So what would happen is they could have the urologist up here 3 days a week and down in the Coachella Valley 2 days a week, and therefore there's your full-time person. That person's happy, they get their salary, and we get a service that we don't then have to send the patients down the hill. One of the biggest problems we have, and you all know this better than I do, is when people require services either down in the Coachella Valley or being transferred to Arrowhead, there's no way to get them there. And so if we have the ability to have the services here in the Morongo Basin, the district has a van which we use to transport patients from home to the clinics, from home to the hospital. We can always expand that and have additional vans if the need is there. Plus we have the bus system which takes people to the hospital as well. There would be a local governing board, and this is where this gets a little confusing. The district will still exist. So the 5 members of the district board will still have a job. So there will still need to be 5 elected people. But they will manage all these funds that Tenet will be giving to the district. There will then be a governing board that would be outside of the district within this new organization. And they would work and be made up of local residents, physicians, local community leaders. They say representatives from the district, but I don't know if the district board would want to serve on another board. But again, they would help the organization have a local voice and help hire management, CEO, CFO, those types of things, approve budgets and purchases. Tenet has committed to keeping the acute care hospital for the term of the lease, which is 30 years. Oops, wrong one. No material reductions in services without the consent of the district, which is a key here. Commit to, for 10 years, for specified services. Currently, all the services that are on their specified list are all the things that we currently do now. So they've committed to those staying on for at least 10 years. If for some reason after that period of time there's a service where they're losing money, if the district agrees to fund the loss, they will keep that service. A perfect example of a service that loses money is labor and delivery. You don't make money delivering babies. No hospital that I've ever worked in has ever made money of that. But if you're going to be a community hospital, you have to deliver babies. So it's one of those things that if they came to that point, the district wanted to keep the service, the district would fund the loss. Same charity care policies that we have in place. The medical staff would continue with the same bylaws that they have, and all the physicians, the hospital-based physicians, those are emergency room physicians, radiologists, and the pathologists. Those, they have contracts. They're not employed, but they are contracted. Their agreements were guaranteed for at least 2 years. All the employees of HDMC would be offered a job. In good standing basically means you have to pass a drug screen and you have to pass Medicare's validation, which means you haven't been fraudulent in billing Medicare. Nobody ever reduces the pay. I've been through a number of these and I've never seen that happen. Everybody will retain their job for at least 6 months. After that, for the first 12 months, then the severance policy that's in place will, the HDMC severance policy, which is exactly the same as tenants, will be in place. All the employees will receive credit for years of service, so if they've worked for the district for 15 years, when they move into the new company, they'll start with 15 years of service, so they don't lose that. And competitive benefit package. And the package for tenant is probably better than what we provide now. So where do we go from here? Right now, we will start, or actually within the next week, we will start developing the contract where we take the letters of intent and turn them into a legal document, and tenant will begin what is called due diligence, where they will come in and they will ask for copies of every contract we have. They will basically crawl under the sheets so they know everything there is to know about this place. That will take about 60 days, 60 to 90 days, but I'm pushing for 60 days. When we reach a point where there is an agreement called a definitive agreement, then that will be signed by tenant, that will be signed by our district board. At that point in time, the deal still isn't done, because then that's when it comes to you. There is a requirement, I believe it's a county requirement, that from the time the definitive agreement is signed and there's a resolution by the board asking for an election, it's a minimum of 88 days before you can have an election. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 months after the definitive agreement is signed, we will then go out for a mail ballot. And the one thing we will make sure that we do is we don't have a mail ballot at the same time that High Desert Water District is going out for their mail ballot, because their mail ballot will cost money, mine won't cost any money, so I don't want to get them mixed up. And we don't want people getting 2 ballots. So the thought is that sometime around May, June of next year, there will be a vote by the people that live in the district. Anybody who is a registered voter gets to vote, and it is a simple majority, 50% plus 1 person, and it passes or fails, whichever. So I threw a lot of information at you. Questions? Yes, sir.
Everything that you said makes sense. I understand the reason for converting it to a private hospital to get access to the GAF. What would you say to our community would be the perceived downsides to this, for healthcare costs, for quality of healthcare, any perceived downsides?
Quality, I would expect to improve, because when you become part of a large system like Tenet, you have access to the resources that they have, which right now, as a small independent hospital and a rural hospital on top of that, you know, if we need things done more often than not, we have to go outside to contract with those. We are required by law to provide the same surveys and the same quality measures that, you know, City of Hope, UCLA, all of them do. They have probably, you know, departments full of people to help them get there, and, you know, I have 600 employees. So the quality, I would expect, would improve over time. The cost, you know, there is always an old wives' tale that if a for-profit organization buys you, your costs go up. The days of being reimbursed based on what we charge are long gone. We get paid on either a per diem, or we get paid on a DRG, diagnosis-related group, so it's whatever the diagnosis is. There's a flat rate for that. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is moving more towards paying for quality services, so you would want to have your quality going up. So I don't see any downside from that standpoint. I would expect that the average individual in the Morongo Basin would receive more care, and I would venture to say even better care in the future once Tenet has come in and started to improve processes and add processes.
Are there any perceived downsides?
The only downside is if we don't do this. If we don't do this, then probably within the next 2 years the hospital will be out of business.
What was that timeline?
A couple of years.
Unfortunately, a lot of what happens in the community is perception.
Right.
We are very interested in seeing our hospital being protected and go long term. We want it and we need it, but there's a perception that there's poor customer care. And the question I want to ask is, has Tenet given us any proposal or idea of what type of systems will they put in place so that going forward the customer care at the hospital could be perceived by the community as having improved? In other words, has Tenet given us also assurance that the community will see that customer care has gone up? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in fact, when each of these organizations made presentations, they presented us with quality data. And one thing you can guarantee is that the federal government has us measuring everything from, you know, soup to nuts in terms of quality. And the majority of the indicators, tenants, hospitals, and they showed us I think 5 of their hospitals. Their quality indicators were, in most cases, higher than ours, and they were also higher than state averages and national averages. So they understand, and as I had mentioned, you know, the Affordable Care Act is moving towards paying for quality. Historically, hospitals were reimbursed for volume. The more you did, the more you got. And that is being changed, and basically you're being required to provide quality service. If you don't provide quality service to certain benchmarks, then you actually get a reduction in your payments. So it's encouraging the hospital industry to move from a volume-driven to a quality-driven organization. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm concerned about the loss of jobs. I heard, and maybe you can address this, that you'll be outsourcing housekeeping and food services. and also possibly reducing some layers of administration. And I was concerned about how this would impact the employees as the third largest employer. Are we going to have certain folks that are going to have their jobs outsourced?
Well, and outsourced is an interesting term because often with an organization you contract with somebody else, and I'll use Service Master. They used to do this a lot. They would come in and they would run your housekeeping, they'd run dietary, they'd run plant operations. But what that means is the employee is potentially no longer employed by the hospital, they're now employed by Service Master. Because at the end of the day, I have to have environmental services people, I have to have dietary people, I have to have plant operation people. So it's a matter of, more likely than anything else, is that they would still have jobs. They may not just work for the hospital anymore, they would work for this other organization. I've been in a lot of hospitals where we have done that in those areas. Layers of management, I have no way of knowing. They haven't spoken to us about that at all. My assumption is there's probably be some consolidation. I would think so. There are some services right now in a hospital, in the medical records department, you have what are called coders. And they code the bill, they give the bill, the diagnosis based on the documentation. Coding today is done, I can have people in India code for me. I mean, this stuff is done on the internet, so people don't have to be employed by the hospital. There's a possibility that they could be outsourced. But again, all of this is supposition, and until we get down to the nth degree, and I'm telling you what I tell the staff at the hospital, we can live on rumors or what ifs, but none of this is in black and white yet. But some people will very possibly be outsourced or moved to a different organization, but still have a job.
Thank you.
Captain?
Yeah, I'd actually like to ask this in my personal capacity as a resident of the Morongo Basin. On one of your earlier slides, it showed that I think last year the district lost $4 million.
Correct.
So clearly, I mean, if you've got a $27 million payroll, I'm going to assume that's where some of it goes. I don't mean clearly, and I promise there is a question in here. But obviously, you're going to have to do something, either as a district or with tenant. You're going to have to do something. You cannot continue to lose $4 million a year.
Yes.
So we have to do something.
One of the things that we've had to do over the past years, and I mentioned this before about, you know, we're required to provide the same kind of services as a hospital, you know, 10 times our size. We don't have the expertise, so we have to go out and hire a consultant. We probably spent in this calendar year close to $2.5 million in consultants. There was a program being pushed by the federal government, which was a change in the coding mechanism that we use. And I won't get into all the details, but we were moving from something called ICD-9 to ICD-10. And it was supposed to go into effect in October. And so we started down the path of getting ready for this. And it's a very time-intensive, labor-intensive process, changing computer systems. And we started working on it in December of last year and got into, I believe, April or May, and the federal government delayed it. It was supposed to go into effect this October. They pushed it back to October of 15. So we spent all that money going down a path for a certain thing that ends up we didn't do, and we may not do it even in 2015. With Tenant, they have a large infrastructure. They've got corporate office in Dallas. They've got people left and right that do these types of things. We will save money from those standpoints in that we won't have to go out looking for experts to help us do what we need to do. It's in the corporate office. So you're exactly right. If we don't change what we're doing, we won't make any money. And obviously, higher volumes, more patients in the beds generate additional revenue, which also help offset that. Yes, sir.
Concerning the vote, 50% plus one, would that be of the people who vote or of eligible voters?
Just the people that vote.
Okay, and will there be community meetings, and will tenants send representatives to those community meetings?
Yeah, I believe by law there will be 5 community meetings between the time the definitive agreement is signed and the vote. So there'll be 5 community meetings, and I haven't asked tenant, but I would be real surprised if they weren't there, since they're the one that want this vote to go that way. Yes, ma'am.
Is that going to be the only way that you're going to reach people in the community who are going to vote? Or are you going to have direct mailing? Or have you come up with other ideas to show the rest of the community what your proposal is, and so that they will vote?
I'm doing things like this.
This is only a very small, what I'm saying is...
No, I understand. Yeah. Well, and actually, this is the, I believe this is the 6th group that I have spoken to, first with this set of slides, because these are very new. You are the largest group that I've spoken to so far, and I've got one tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, and we'll continue to do these. But yes, we will also put together a campaign, a direct mail campaign, something in the newspaper, because that period of time, I don't expect people to simply believe me because I tell them this is the way to go. We need to provide the information and the opportunities. And if we need to do more than 5 public meetings, we'll do 5 public meetings. I have nothing to do at night. So. Yes, sir.
Always of a frame of mind when you privatize something, private companies expecting to make a profit. If you're already losing money and they're coming in investing money, they want to make money, so there has to be cuts in order to make money. There has to be outsourcing and what you're talking about to get to that thing. I know you want to look at the property taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I've always been of a frame of mind that the people that do things that affect their health should really pay for their health bill up front. I would say that the county of San Bernardino could institute taxes on alcohol, smoking, cigarettes, and put $1 a pack on a cigarette pack and put that into your coffers. A buck on a 6-pack of beer. Sugar is a huge offender. Diabetes and all those other things. So, and you go to any insurance company and they don't insure people that do these things.
Correct.
You know they're going to have problems.
Right. Right.
So now you know, based on what they're giving you, where you should collect some extra tax revenue to put in the hospital's pocket. And only the people that do those things are going to pay for their own health coverage, as they do it.
Well, and yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I have been in this business. It does, but, again, in order to get a tax increase, other than those types, and I'm not a politician, is... Okay. then maybe we'll... So do I. Yeah. Agreed.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming out. This is a subject that I think we'll be looking at a lot between now and the summer. Jed Tucker, you filled out a form that you had a question, but or you have a comment?
I just have a brief comment, and I did hardly any research, about 15 minutes worth tonight on the internet.
And there is a few downsides to having Tenet. And I can't believe the hospital didn't do a little more research. December of last year, Tenet paid the state of Florida $5 million to settle a lawsuit that it gave kickbacks to doctors. February 2014, Georgia and South Carolina, they paid kickbacks to obstetric units serving primarily undocumented Hispanic women to return for referrals for those patients for labor and delivery services in their hospitals. Like I said, I had 10 or 15 minutes to do this between jobs and coming here. This is just the very tip of an iceberg with Tenet. They're huge. This is part of the way they make that money. So I would just, you know, there's, I'm sure, other big companies that do the same thing. But I think the people of this community need to look into this on their own before they vote. And I come from a small community, 30,000 people, very similar. Small community hospital, very hard to get physicians, 50 miles away from a huge conglomerate, huge city with lots of doctors, same situation, but you know, the people of the community need to look into what's happening. So that's my statement. Thank you.
Hi, Peggy Lee Kennedy, Joshua Tree. I just want to add to what Ms. Tucker just said, that it was, I just looked on my phone and it was the Justice Department, the United States Justice Department that actually sued Tenet for the kickbacks for the obstetrics.
Mike wants to reply.
I'm not going to get into a he said, she said, but you could look up every healthcare company that operates in this day and age, and they all have run afoul of state and federal governments. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying it happens. I've been in this business for just short of 40 years. And I will stand by my statement earlier on. If we don't affiliate with somebody, you won't have a hospital. And that is not a threat. That is just simply a statement. And prior to being a CEO, I've been a CFO for 39 of those years. And I understand finances. I understand small rural hospitals because I spent the majority of my career in small rural hospitals, actually turning them around, which is the reason I came here. Unfortunately, this organization and the environment that we live in, the high Medi-Cal, high uninsured, we were too far down the road to turn it around without the help of somebody else. I will give you the facts. Anybody that has known me here for the last couple of years, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you what's good and bad. Am I telling you Tenet is an angel? Not on your life. No healthcare company is. Most companies aren't. But at the end of the day, if we want this hospital to remain here to provide services so you don't have to drive all the way down to desert, we've got to find somebody. Thank you.
Now, if we could introduce Jess Mellon from Nextera. Thank you for being so patient. I know you've been through this entire meeting waiting.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jess Moline with Nextera Energy Resources Solar Development. I've got the weirdest feeling I'm not the most popular guy in the room tonight. I'm not sure why. When I came into it, I was told I was in hostile territory, and I don't believe that because 7 years ago I was a major in the U.S. Air Force over Afghanistan. I've seen hostile territory, and any meeting that starts with a pledge of allegiance, you're good folks in my group. So might be some strong differences of opinion, but I think at the end of the day we're all good, strong Americans. We are proposing a project nearby the Roy Williams Airport. Roy Williams is a great person, as was mentioned before. He is credited with designing the Mickey Mouse ears, as well as over 100 patches for the military during World War II. So a great designer. Give you a quick introduction to who we are. Just bring you up to speed on what we've done as far as the Joshua Solar Farm development. That's the official title if you want to look it up in the county. What the next steps are, and then leave you with my contact information. So NextEra Energy, we're based out of Florida. We've had a long presence in California. We're mostly known as the Big Wind Company. We're the largest renewable energy company in America. We've built a lot more wind than we have solar, but solar is just now up and coming, so we're starting to build quite a bit of solar. The easiest way to think about our company, it's NextEra Energy, split into two different companies. One's FPL, and that's just the power company in Florida, Florida Power and Light. It's kind of like Southern California Edison. I work for the other half of the company, which is NextEra Energy Resources. FPL operates 100% inside of Florida. My company is outside of Florida, and you may have seen in the news just yesterday, I believe. We merged with Hawaiian Electric Company. Not sure what the draw was, if it's palm trees and power lines, but Hawaiian Electric Company is now owned by NextEra Energy. There's a quick map of our facilities. Again, a little tough to see the colors here, but mostly wind throughout the windy regions, and then some solar, some natural gas, even a little bit of oil, some nuclear. But all in all, we're a large, it's called an IPP, independent power producer. So what we do is we build generation facilities that produce power and sell that power wholesale to the power company, which, as I found, then marks it up greatly and sells it back to the ratepayers. So the history of the project real quick. So just kind of a development. There's four things you have to have for a project to exist. One is land. You have to have a place to put the solar panels. We have the 115 acres under option at the Roy Williams Airport. It's the airport property, currently owned by the Richardson family. Second thing, you have to have an interconnection, place for your energy to go. It has to get to the grid. And this is usually the toughest thing to find. You'll notice the other three you can find in a lot of places. But what the true driving factor of development is, where can the grid, when we say the grid, basically think of the power lines. Where can the power lines accept that energy? The grid is very hard to manage. There's a lot of talk about storage in the future, and I think storage will be a great option in the future. Currently, there's really little to no storage on the grid. So when you produce electricity, it has to go through the wires and be consumed immediately. That's the big problem. So the Cal ISO, California Independent System Operator, there's a whole bunch of people up in Folsom, California. Their job 24/7 is to balance the load, the generators with the load. And so that's their job. They have two primary missions: keep the grid reliable at the lowest cost to the customer. So that's interconnection is the true driving piece. We have an interconnect agreement with Southern California Edison, and I'll point out on the property where that interconnect is located. Customer, obviously you don't build a generating plant unless you have a customer to buy the power. We've signed a long-term, what's called a PPA, Power Purchase Agreement with Southern California Edison. So it's a 20-year contract that says they'll take the output of the plant. And you're probably familiar with California Renewable Energy Standards. So the big three, which are Pacific Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric, they have to achieve certain targets with renewable energy. So this power purchase agreement is going towards that. And solar resource. I think you guys would say you've been flooded with solar developers. Solar resource is exceptional in the area, and simply put, the sun produces a lot more energy here than in other parts of the country. So again, you can find, if you look through that, there's land everywhere that there's land. So that's fairly easy to find. Interconnection is a really tough thing to find. Customer is not as easy. There's only certain amounts that they'll purchase. And then solar resource, the sun, shines everywhere, but in certain places it shines a lot better. So, and then just to give you a full history, the Joshua Solar Farm, we didn't start with the development. It was actually started by British Petroleum, BP. A couple of years ago, they divested themselves of their entire solar portfolio, and we purchased their developments. So if you're looking for the full history of this project, do some searching for BP as well. All right, so here's the town of Joshua Tree. This is the Roy Williams Airport. The lines aren't perfectly straight. That's with me and my electronic crayon on Google Earth. That's what the project looks like now, so I'll show you what the iterations were. It started out, you see the airport up here. When we purchased the project from BP, the project was actually proposed south of there. And this was the outline of the original project. It had a contract with Southern California Edison when we purchased it. And we started monitoring the county, this was about a year ago, then they came up with the spark form and everything. So there's a couple of issues that we had with this original location. First of all, it's undisturbed desert area. And we've heard loud and clear, if you go to the spark forum, you listen to a lot of the talk at the county, there's a lot of different recurring themes, dust and water, but one of the biggest recurring themes is we should try to put solar on disturbed areas, and I couldn't agree more. There's plenty of disturbed area out there. Ideally, you'd put it all on rooftop, but there's massive problems with that as well. Someday I would love to see just the rooftops covered in solar, but we have a ways to go to be able to integrate the way this power grid is set up. There's also, you can kind of see a little bit these streaks here. That's hydrological flow, so when the water does flow through there, this is the main thoroughfare. That does also create some better tortoise habitat. So all that put together kind of told us, hey, this is probably not the best spot for a solar plant. So we actually canceled the contract with Southern California Edison, and then we moved the project. The second iteration was the airport property. And then you'll see this additional 40 acres to the east here. When we originally put together the project, we put what's called its tracking. And so it's solar panels, and they're about as tall as me, about 6 feet tall. And you put them on it's just a bar that has a motor on the end. It's called a tracking configuration. And basically the solar panels point at the east in the morning. And as the sun comes from east through the day out to the west, the panels actually track the sun, which allows one panel to produce more energy than if that panel is in a fixed configuration. The problem with that is as they move, they cast much bigger shadows. And so you have to have a much larger area to fit your required energy in. Again, so we followed, we thought about that long and hard and said, hey, this is actually undisturbed area. It would be new territory. So what we've proposed, this is a little bit better map. My map department made this one, so that's why the lines are straight. This is the current project boundary. So the proposed project right now is restricted to the Roy Williams Airport. It's a fixed tilt, which what that means is, we're going to put the panels up, but they won't have the tracking motors. We're going to optimize, pretty much facing south. There's different ways you can, there's a lot of science that goes into this, but ultimately they're going to be panels that face pretty much south. Some developers are starting to face them more to the west. Facing south gets you peak production at high noon, but if you look at the actual consumption of the load, the peak is around between 4 and 7 p.m. depending on where you're at. After people go home, some people are still at work, the lights are still on at work, people are getting home, all the appliances are coming on at home, that's the true peak. So that's the current project boundary as is proposed today. And then this purple line, the point of interconnection is right here. It's to a 33 kV, so 33,000 volt existing distribution line. So there's a line that runs up Sunfair Road with Southern California Edison now, and you can't really read it, but down here is the larger voltage line. So the energy, we have a contract with Edison to deliver the energy to a pole that's right there, and then it'll go down the existing infrastructure. I think they're going to put some new wires on. They told me that the wires are getting pretty old out here. So they're going to put, it's called reconductoring. It's just new power lines. And so that'll be the upgrades to get the power out. So what are the next steps? Obviously we need a conditional use permit from the county. A couple of weeks ago we submitted the application. Not sure exactly how this county treats it. You'll be able to go get that application online, but probably not yet. It hasn't been deemed complete. So they take the application, we fill out the forms. We submitted that about a week and a half ago. And then sometime probably around the end of the year, early next year, the county will come back to us and say, your application's deemed complete, or more than likely what usually happens is say, hey, we have 4 or 5 things that we want clarified or we need more information. So most counties, once they deem the application complete, it's published for public consumption. And at that point, public comment, both encouraged and welcome. That's not the only avenue. I'm here. I'll give you my contact information. We hear repeatedly that, and developers come in and they spend years and all this money, and then all of a sudden, the first time you hear it is, you get a letter from the county that says, hey, someone wants to build something right next door to your house. Very frustrating, as I can imagine. So that's what we're trying to get out early on this one. We expect that the permitting process, year and a half, construction on this would start approximately, March to June of 2016 is when we would plan construction. Before that, once you get a conditional use permit, you still have building permits, grading permits, and actual building permits. Counties treat them differently. There's really no buildings on the solar facility, but there are containers that hold the inverters. So, sometimes we require building permits for that, and sometimes they're not. Again, just to go over the plan right now, we're trying to go to a fixed configuration, and in the next few weeks we're going to do some geotech boring out there, and that's simply you go out and you drill a core sample to try to find out the substrate, what is the soil like. We would rather not do any grading out here. We'd rather just drive the piles into the existing, through the runway and through the taxiways that are existing out there, and not, do minimum disturbance. Obviously, it's cheaper for us at the end of the day. We are a business, but we also believe that will greatly decrease the amount of dust created. We will use water. Be right up front about that. You use water mostly for dust control. In the wind business, they use a lot of water mixing the concrete and stuff. Not so in the solar business. We drive the piles, if we can, right into the ground. So we use water during construction. After that, water use is very limited to panel washings. As a panel gets soiled over a certain amount of time, you have to go out and wash the panels. A clean panel obviously produces a lot more energy. So that's the project. And then there's my contact information. If there's an actual media inquiry or anything, it has to go through our corporate guy, Steve Stengel. He's very responsive, very good to get back to any of the media. So I know we're way over time, so.
I know we got a lot of questions out there. I'm going to limit it to about 10 questions, and then we'll move into the comment section, and I'll come to you with a microphone. Okay, Bob?
Could you go back about 3 slides?
Sure.
Back to
this one? Okay.
Where the purple meets the blue.
Yeah, right here.
What's the name of that street that goes, what's the blue on? 2 Mile Road? Okay, thank you.
Say that's like an eye test or something, huh? Yeah, and so it's, that's the concrete plant. So it's Sunfair Road. So it's a little bit weird. This is a 2-acre parcel, and when the airport was built, if you zoom out there, it's the end of the runway, and so it kind of jutted out into this additional property. There's no planned panels for that 2-acre property, but just to be upfront with you, it'll pretty much be covered in panels. It's 20 megawatts AC. So when you talk about AC versus DC, a solar panel generates direct current, but what we use, what comes out of the wall, is alternating current. And so we have a contract to deliver 20 megawatts of AC power to Southern California Edison. So it'll be mostly panels. There's some required roads from the fire department for safety reason, and there's perimeter roads required from the county. But in there you'll see kind of like a shipping container, and those are inverters. So essentially, if the project goes as planned, it'll be mostly panels, a couple of roads with some containers out there. So that's what the project would look like.
How do you propose to keep the concrete dust off of those panels without using water?
That is an exceptionally good question. This concrete plant is, I've heard it creates a lot of dust, and here's our conundrum. I've got this fear, we put a panel out there, concrete dust lands on it, I go to wash it, concrete plus water, wow, real bad day. The next day you're out there with a chisel, right, and you're telling California Edison, hey, turn the lights off because we're not producing so much. We're going to try to push the panels as far north as we can. So interesting development. I was a wind developer originally. I've been doing solar for about 3.5 years, and it's amazing the innovation and just the technological advancements that have been made. Me personally, I mean, you'll see, I drive a Prius. I'm what they call a true believer. Back to the Future, at the end, the guy puts a banana peel and Mr. Fusion on his car. I would love to get there, right? Yesterday we powered ourselves with coal. Today it's mostly natural gas. Someday I want to get to Mr. Fusion. The question I always have is, what's the bridge between natural gas today and Mr. Fusion? I'm hoping it's solar. The panels stand about 5 feet tall, 2.5 feet wide, per standard panel, kind of like you'd see on your roof. When I started 3 years ago, the panels that were being installed for these types of installations, that one panel produced 250 watts of power. That same panel today, I just broke ground on a project up near Bakersfield. That same dimension of panel produces 310 watts. We're talking to the manufacturers, and we've been told to expect that when we start construction on this, those panels will produce up to 340 watts of power per panel, which is great. That means we can produce the same amount of power in a much reduced. So our plan right now to deal with the concrete dust is to hopefully use 340 or better watt panels and push them north and stay out of this area. The winds purportedly blow this way, so that's our plan, but it's still a big unknown out there.
I could see the concrete dust miles away when I used to drive in from that direction. Half a mile.
No, it's an issue, and we know. So. Let me know if that concrete plant comes up for sale.
So,
who's next? Okay, there in the back, and then I think up here in the green sweater is next, after you.
so you're saying if the blue area, that's all going to be panels. So we're looking at a setback of what from Sunfair? And so when I'm driving in my car on Sunfair, which I do because I live just north of here, with the 5.5, 6 foot panel, that's what I'll see the entire distance going down. Is that right? And so there's basically no setback from Sunfair. Is that correct?
No, the answer is to be determined. We had what's called a pre-application meeting with the county. So before you submit an application, you sit down with the county and they bring, everybody, all the different departments. You meet for multiple hours. And what we were told is, I think it was from center line of Sunfair, they want 40 feet of paving, if not paving, some type of soil control or something, and then a project fence, and then there was a perimeter road. I think it's 26 feet. So there's about, can't remember the exact mass, 70, 75 feet or so.
What type of fencing is that perimeter fence?
So the perimeter fence is usually chain link, but the county said we would need to obstruct it with some type of plant. And so again, that's where it's to be determined. We don't want to go out and plant non-native plants. That's just something we'll have to work through. The county is right up front that there will be setback, there will be some type of visual obstruction. We haven't decided exactly what that is. There was a case, I know a developer did something in North Dakota, same kind of thing, planted thousands of trees and it was beautiful for a year. And then they all died because they were not native to the area. So we want to avoid something like that. I think right up here was what you've been waiting, sir. Okay. Oh, the microphone? Okay. Okay, sorry.
Okay, this won't be my only question, but there is probably about 30 to 40 mornings where the dew point, you come out to your car and it's covered in dew. That's going to happen to the panels with cement dust. And you won't be out there every day with your, or whatever workers you have out there to clean that off. It'll be you have big problems. Okay. You are not addressing. But my basic question is, do you think Josh Tree doesn't need an airport?
Well, my understanding, and I'm very close with the family who owns it, is it's an inactive airport.
Yes, it is inactive, and maybe you have a real close understanding with the family. We don't, but we do think that Josh Tree does need an airport a lot more than it needs another 100 acres of solar panels.
Okay, and that's exactly what the public process is for. If you guys would much rather have a fully active airport out there than solar panels, then let that be heard loud and clear to the county. Just to point out one other thing that we do have, there's a soiling station, right? We don't want to invest millions of dollars and find out that this is the wrong spot. So we've had weather station collecting data for well over a year. They have all kinds of measurements. One of them is a soiling station. It does measure the soiling throughout the year. So we're well aware. And if we make a big mistake, then bad on us because we didn't do our homework. So.
I have a question, but first I want to preface it. I'm sure you know your competition, and our neighbor, 29 Ponds, the city of 29 Ponds, who are a lot smarter than the city of Joshua Tree. They're incorporated, so they determine their own destiny as opposed to us, who are slaves to the county of San Bernardino, who's basically broke. So anyway, my question is this. They had a solar farm, I think 300 acres proposed, and they voted it down. Why is your farm going to fry less birds than other solar farms? I mean, what technology do you have to improve on the fact that, and we have proof tonight about the birds, that birds, hundreds of thousands of birds are going to die as a result of the solar farm?
Okay, are you referring to Ivanpah, the solar power tower with the solar flex? Yeah, so a completely different technology. So now it's not my company that built it. I'm not the expert, but I do know how it works. Again, as a pilot, a lot of my pilot friends flying out of Nellis Air Force Base have expressed that, hey man, you can see that thing forever. The way the power tower works is, so let me step back. For most energy in America, we talk about the different ways that you generate energy. Most of the energy is generated by boiling water, right? Coal, nuclear, gas. What they do is we burn that stuff, or we create fission to boil water. And then that water turns into steam, runs through a steam turbine. So that steam turbine turns, rotor stator, and that's how energy is produced. Wind turbines run the rotor stator without any steam turbine. What Ivanpah does is they have think of a teapot up way up high in the air, and they have thousands, it might be tens of thousands, don't quote me on that, but it's lots of mirrors about the size of a garage door, and those mirrors reflect the sun from where it would have landed on the ground to that teapot. Not a teapot, but it's a large thing of water. It heats up to an insanely high temperature, boils water, creates steam, and off you go with your steam turbine. So what they found is the concentration where you put that much sunlight in one little area, it gets extremely hot, the solar flux, and lots of birds, and I've been reading all the articles and we're well aware of that. This is different. This is a solar photovoltaic panel, which sits there and faces the sun. So I'm absolutely not saying that no birds are going to die. I'm saying that we're underway with studies right now. No, it is quite possible that some birds will die at the solar facility, but we are underway with studies right now. We're doing all we can to mitigate it. We're very close with Fish and Wildlife. This is not our only solar project. We're under construction on multiple solar projects.
Is that on your website?
Absolutely. NextAir Energy. The best way to save yourself a click, nextairenergyresources.com, or you can go to if you just Google NextAir Energy, this is all available on our website.
Okay, can I make some comments about birds, please? It's the lake effect that we're most concerned about.
Sorry.
And there's a number of lakes. There's going to be a couple of them in Lucerne Valley. There's just been an approved for one in Landers, which is only 35 acres, but that's sufficient. On your map, you don't show the one that is to the east of you, which is also 100 plus acres. There's also the one on Lear Avenue, and then one on Indian Trail. All of those. Indian Trail, I believe, is 80 acres. The others are 100. So what we're creating here is a number of lakes, which is extremely seductive, which I'm sure you're aware of because you're working with Fish and Wildlife Service. At this point, I believe there's about 160 species, basically seabirds, that have been retrieved from 1,000 plus carcasses that have been found. But there is, however, no scientific data that actually has looked at the whole parameter of when those birds are dead, how many they actually retrieve as opposed to how many are there. So in other words, you could have birds come in, they could die on site, but you have predators come in and get them before you see them. So the number, what is really important is that there be good monitoring protocols set up and done. As far as I know, there are no monitoring protocols in operation at this time, so we don't know. But we have some evidence to show that there is some real problem. We also have the canary in the mine, which is eBird, which is an international database, which on Cornell University, and we can look at the birds' species numbers that fly, for instance, in the desert, coming in, they start about in Siberia, they come down, you can add the numbers from Death Valley down to the Salton Sea, and we have about 428 species that fly over this area. We're all in the region that is going down to the Salton Sea, which is the funneling point down into Central and South America. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And were this to be approved, you cannot overlook the fact that you are one of a number of sites that is extremely attractive to birds that fly up there. So in terms of the lake effect, there's a lot we don't know, there's a lot we need to know. There's, I would believe, a moral obligation by any development company to engage with the Fish and Wildlife Service in the monitoring protocol and in the mitigation for that, because I'm sure there can be, but it's a 24-hour problem because you're facing your mirrors pretty much up as opposed to you don't stow down. So it's a big problem, but hopefully if you're working with everybody as you say you are, then you will be in contact with Fish and Wildlife Service as I am, and working with them for monitoring throughout the California desert.
Would NextEra be willing to share with the taxpayers of this country how much they're getting in federal subsidies, tax subsidies, and loan guarantees to build this project?
That would be something that'd have to go through a corporate official media request, but yes, we are getting tax subsidies.
Yes.
There's a tax credit for both wind and solar, and we will get tax credits for building this facility.
You avoided answering my question.
Okay, would you be willing?
The question is, would NextEra be willing to share the amount that they're getting?
I do not know. I'd have to ask Steve Stengel, my media corporations person, if we would be willing to share the exact number.
What would you believe his response would be?
What do I believe his response would be? He would probably tell you the law is very clear. There's a 30% tax subsidy out there.
Okay, so what's happening? Okay, so what's happening here is a large part of this is being funded by the people right here, and a large part of it's going to be funded for the transmission by the ratepayer, who pays Edison Company to transmit it. And then that transmission product, which is power, is going to be sold back to consumers, which is all of us here. Boy, I'd like to be in the power generating business because it seems like you don't pay for much of it.
Okay, well,
It's not all of us here. Some of us got our own private off-grid.
Oh, may I make a comment to that? Yeah. No, just one quick comment to that. The California Energy Commission has been approached for people who are off the grid because you're not paying your fair share of the cost of Edison Company and the power company's transmission, and that they have been approached to have a fee, have you pay a fee so that you're paying your fair share.
Hi, so my question is, for those of us who live directly north of here and higher in elevation, because there's a slope up, I'm thinking we're living pretty much at a incident angle of reflection, and we're going to be seeing the reflection off of these solar panels coming into our homes and casting shadows all across our landscape. And that's my first concern. My second question is, how long is the public comment period going to be, and how will we be notified?
Okay, so to your first question, will you see the panels? I think absolutely. If you're higher in elevation, you're immediately north, I think you will see the panels. The panels will face south.
Right, but we're due south of there.
Oh, you're due south?
Yes.
You live south? Okay.
Elevation. So at about 45.
As far as reflection, the county's told us we will have to do visual simulations. Remember, a solar panel, the whole point is to absorb as much sunlight as possible. Not that no light does reflect, but the whole engineering process of the panel is to absorb as much light as possible. So they're not like a mirror. They're, what you see reflection, we'll see in your visual simulation, where, depending on where you live. But the county's been very clear that we do have to provide visual simulations. Second of all, you have to ask the county. They told us right up front that, the rules regarding solar, there's a lot of discussion right now. They were unwilling to commit to us, what timelines, what are the findings of fact. They said it's all up in the air, which I understand. But I would think that if you went to the county website, they would probably publish their rules and regulations as what the comment period is.
Where is this electricity going to wind up?
Wherever, so electricity, it's kind of like water. Electricity is going to flow down the lines, and it's going to go the path of least resistance.
Yeah,
and so,
but where do the lines, where's the end of the line?
So that I cannot answer. That would, so it's owned by, so we deliver it to Southern California Edison, and that energy flows throughout their system.
I'll bet you a breakfast it's going to wind up outside of our area.
I would imagine that most of it would. I can't tell you what
now, why would we want people who live around there, why would we want you to put 100 acres of solar into our rural community, and we all live on large properties, for you, why would we want to have our homes devalued so that you can make a profit and we lose? You're not even giving us a break on our Edison bill. You're using our water. This is the desert, there's a reason why we're the desert.
I think the only answer I have to your why question is I think I hear loud and clear you don't want me to do it. But I understand your concerns fully, I truly do. But as far as where the energy goes,
But you want to ruin these people's homes.
no, I'm not out to ruin anyone's homes.
You want to
Are you gonna be reimbursing all these
what they have spent their lives to build.
I'm willing to stand here and take your questions as long as you want, but I'm not going to try to justify what we're doing, and I don't want any of you to fret again. I truly believe you're all wonderful folks. The reality is, California is leading a charge which I believe in, which is building a lot of renewable energy. And this is not my first project. And at the end of the day, they have to be built somewhere.
Build it in your backyard.
Okay.
Put it in your backyard. We don't want it in ours.
So, we drove from Apple Valley, and we participated recently with successfully defeating 2 projects with the county. Thank goodness for the county listening and having some good sense. Where do you live?
I live in Lincoln, California, north of Sacramento.
So, have you heard of the water spill in UCLA about 2 months ago? There was 20 million gallons of water spilling all over the campus ground. It made national news. Did you hear about that?
No, but I did notice when I left my hotel today in Victorville that they were actually emptying their pool onto the ground. So I know there's a lot of water waste.
Well, that's a creative answer to my question. But there's a 200-acre project in Lucerne Valley that's currently underway, and they grossly underestimated their water consumption. They said they needed 30 acre-feet. They're already up to 80 acre-feet, over 20 million gallons, and that's more than the equivalent of what made national news at UCLA. So, I know you don't want to hear everybody's comments. Who needs to hear our comments is the County of San Bernardino. We need to tell everybody, participate in Spark. Have your voices heard. Tell them loud and clear the solution is DG. We don't want to transmit it across our desert. We don't want to buy you your Prius. We don't want to pay for your suit. We don't want to pay for any of that. We don't want it here. Put it on the rooftops where it's going to be used.
Thank you very much. This isn't the first time
been approached by,
This is just a question and answer. We're going to get to the comments right after this, okay?
and this isn't the first time solar companies come here. And your map, you're right, you're not showing the other solar field. And that's interesting to me because it's a certain amount of, can you turn that down a little bit so it's not yelling at me so much? Well, anyway, is that better? Okay. So, you know, the people that came here and they sold us a bill of goods. It was like, oh yeah, we hike in Joshua Tree. We like it, you know. We were open. We're open to the idea that we need to save our planet. The California desert, I don't think is going to do it. And you and your company, and the idea that, you know, I'm sad that you selected an area 1.5 miles from a national park. That's the first thing. And in the national park, these projects will be visible. I live right next to the national park, and I already see the other project, and it does look like a lake. And at times, it looks like a black lake. Sometimes it looks like a blue lake. Sometimes it looks sort of like a gray lake. It changes its color day by day. The outcome of this is there's nothing in this for the Joshua Tree people at all. You know, this is on us, period. And this is your current proposed area. And I'm worried about that. Is this your only plan for Joshua Tree? Or do you really have an additional plan in addition to the current plan? And once you get, and are those lines that they're going to upgrade, are those going to be big galvanized poles that are going to go in here soon? Because you got to have them at a certain height off the ground because you're running so much power that you can't have, you know, 12,000 volts be there anymore. You're at 40,000, then you go 77,000 or whatever it is. The next thing we've got these big galvanized monsters because there's about 50 of these fields going across our area. And those are the areas, I was involved in the BEAT team when we started with the original realization that our county didn't know what it was doing with regards to renewable energy. I have a hunch that this project is left over from those days in that grandfathered in situation when BP was out here. And they looked at everything and realized some of the folly that was going to be involved here because you're in a very serious community. I don't know if you know, but we passed a state law. You heard us talk about bobcats. I'm telling you, there's people that must realize that our community is looking out for itself here. And what you're presenting today doesn't really sound much different what those guys brought us a while back, and that you're building something that I think is going to be just what's next. And that's what we said to them after they turned around and sold out to someone else. And maybe you guys are going to hang on to it. But it doesn't change the fact that there's still nothing in this that makes it be a community thing, something for us that we should be proud of. And that we find a sense of pride. And I'll tell you right now, the California desert is not going to solve climate change around the world. There are too many places around this world that are so far backwards when they're burning down the forests and I got to tell you what, the California desert is not going to be able to solve our world problems. It's not. And it's only because of that 30% and those cash kickbacks that has become a lucrative, you know, sort of enticement to something isn't really making any sense to the real problem solutions that we need. And so I like the idea that you're, you know, enthusiastic about technology. When we first got the B team together and we were doing this a few years back, it was $4 a watt to build your own home system. And right now on eBay, for $8,500, I can get 4,800 watts with the grid-tied system. The $2.2 billion that would have gone into the final construction of the Palin project, that would do 250,000 homes for that same amount of money with the current eBay costs. You can do 280,000 homes and put it without any transmission lines. And nobody has an electric bill after that. So our taxpayer money would have gone into something that would have been paid, delivered, and doing something for the next 25 years unencumbered by a profiting situation by people who don't even live here. And I'm personally a neighborhood guy, and I don't think we'd let anything in our neighborhood that doesn't have a direct influence on our hospital. You can hear what we're doing, having to buy a company into the situation because we're $4 million, you know, in the hole. And where in the heck are guys like you looking out for people like us when it really turns out that there's a whole community here you're affecting? And there's my comment, sorry.
Quality of our lives and our children's lives. The environment.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, I do have a question. A question. Will this project, or does any solar project, produce any tax revenue that flows back into the community?
Again, that's something we could submit to. We have a tax team, and they look at, you know, all the tax law, and that's something that'll come out through the county process, is what are the taxes that apply. Again, I'm not a county tax expert with the different zoning, but normally almost all projects have, you know, some taxes. There are some tax exemptions out there. So the exact answer, you know, I wouldn't have tonight, but we could give it to you.
All right. We're going to go ahead and go into the comment section now. Mike, you want them to take, are you going to stick around for that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
some of these people have probably already asked your question or made a comment. So we'll go with Celeste.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, this is directed more towards the county regarding this issue. We're looking at an airport, and these guys want to dig up the runway. They want to take down all the buildings and the hangars. They want to eliminate this facility in exchange for a bunch of solar panels. Airports, especially small airports in rural communities, are under assault nationwide, and this is a very valuable asset. Even though it may not be functioning right now, it is still intact, it is still valuable, it can still operate. The county should be looking at it in that regard and not as just another piece of empty desert that they don't think is important. All of our desert is important, but an existing airport in a rural community is very important and very valuable and could bring so much more return to the county and to the community as a functioning airport than just as a field of solar panels. And I invite the county to consider that, and I would like to ask the Economic Development Department of the county to come and help us figure out a way to make it work as a viable airport, because these things, people travel in their little airplanes all over the place, and a little restaurant, a hotel, a bed and breakfast, some kind of driving connection to the park, it would be so much more valuable, again, to the county in terms of tax revenue and to the community in terms of just making this a more interesting place and a more attractive place. Solar panels, of all of the places that you want to put them, why did you choose an airport? And anyways, thank you.
Okay, let's hope I get this one right. Spider Jane?
I have exactly the same comment as that.
Okay, good. Bobby?
My comment to the county is I'm really concerned about the overall environmental impact and how the winds blow in this area and how far, you know, you're talking 100 acres of dust that's going, when you get 30, 40 mile an hour winds, that's going to kick up a lot of dust. Those homes are going to be covered out there. You know, this is rural living, and it should be remain as rural living. We have our own dust, but at least the plant and the vegetations that is there, it helps hold that dust down. But any disturbance, and there's no way that anyone can put in that many solar panels without disturbing the ground. And you know, you said something about watering the ground and keeping it for dust control while you're building. That is a law. It's required ordinance to do so. But once it's built, it'll take another 40 years to revegetate itself out here in this dry desert. So this is my concern, that, you know, this is affecting the property values out in the homes that are out there. It's affecting our tourism. It is just a poor consideration of the county to generate revenue for them at our expense. And I would ask you to consider putting it in all of your backyard, and the people in the building, you know, departments and and the government too. Let them sit with this. But this does, you know, if you're in Northern California, yes, they're getting a lot less, but it's a little bit more wet. And they have more vegetation and it can hold it. But here, we don't. We have wind and just small ground plants that take years to grow. Thank you.
George, you want to make another comment?
I do. I had a question before, now I've got a comment. This is really also, it's addressed to the Mac. I have to put my phone. A couple of years ago, the LA Times ran a story. It was called "Solar Power Plants Burden the Counties That Host Them in California." And there was a gentleman quoted, Jerry Newcomb, Public Works Director for San Bernardino County. I don't know if he still has that job. This is the quote: "Southern California is going to become the home to the state's ability to meet its solar goals. That's great, but where are the benefits to the county?" Now, we've heard that there are going to be no benefits to Joshua Tree. That's kind of obvious. We bear all the impacts. We're a tourist area. This is going to impact tourism. It's going to impact our property values, impact the wild. All these points have been made. I would like to ask the MAC to pass a resolution, since it's an issue here for Joshua Tree, but it's a county-wide issue. Pass a resolution. I would like to see the county actually do an audit of the solar projects, wind projects, all these renewable projects that have been constructed in the county that get all kinds of tax breaks, that don't pay regular business tax. NextEra is a $15 billion company, by the way. $15 billion company. In our little hospital, $5 million bucks, you know, and we're going to get zero from this solar plant here in our community. So I would like to see an audit conducted by the county of all the solar, wind, whatever projects that are getting all these tax breaks from Washington, that the county is not seeing benefits. We don't see jobs. That's the other thing. I'm kind of glad that you didn't mention the jobs, because there aren't going to be any jobs. So I'm glad you didn't bring that up. But this is what's happening. We're kind of like in the inner cities, where the poor neighborhoods get all the impacts from, for example, here in San Bernardino, the train traffic and the truck traffic, because we're the inland port. So they all go through poor neighborhoods and fumes and noise and everything else. We don't have those problems out here. We have problems with our tourist business, which is impacted by this type of development. So anyway, that's what I would like to see. I would like to see a countywide audit to actually put some numbers to show that these projects are they're taking from us, taking our resources, sending the electricity out to LA, San Diego, and every place but here, and we get nothing. Okay.
You sure you got 20 seconds left? Lori Steele, you want to make another comment?
Okay, so this message is primarily to the Board of Supervisors, and we want to reiterate to everyone here and the public in general that we need to tell the supervisors we need to reduce the intensity in the desert. We need to encourage DG. I would be willing to venture that if solar and wind were really cost effective, that they would be flying off the shelves at Walmart right now. So because of the subsidization and because of the tax incentives is why these types of projects can exist. Rooftop DG and in the built environment. I would like to encourage Marina to appeal the project that was just approved by the county. I think you have a really good position to do that, and our group will definitely support you. And just people need to speak up.
Buck, you want to make a comment?
I always want to make a comment. I actually live in the area affected. I'm a mile and a half from where you're at. I can see the plant, the concrete plant. I watched the Cascade thing go in. We met with them. They said, oh, we're not going to build new transmission lines. They built new transmission lines down Cascade. We're not going to expand it quickly, and it won't use much water. They used 80 acre-feet to grade that property. And then recently they were caught stealing water to wash their panels. They began grading without a permit, which is occurring in Landers. We don't have a lot of trust for solar companies, and it's not anything personal. It's just we don't. They told us that it's a combination of distributed and utility scale. It isn't when they're putting it in my backyard. When I drive down Sunfair every day, I'm going to see it. I have 3 homes. I have vacation rentals. And the number one thing people come here for is to not see what you're building. They don't want to see anything that shows that this land has been improved. They like to see, and that's what the park tells us. The park surveys everybody that comes to the national park. They want to see wide open, undisturbed, unimproved land. And that directly affects me because I got people coming from all over the world, not just LA. They come from everywhere. Denmark, Sweden, Russia, Canada, everywhere. To this place because it's special. It's a gem. It doesn't look like everywhere else yet. And that's why we're upset. And that's why I'm upset. I've been lied to. They sold out. They said they wouldn't do that either. The dust storms that go through here, you guys are built in the wrong place. You should have learned from what they did. And that was Edison. Edison bought Edison's Sun is what they called it, but they bought another company. Yeah, and the thing that bothers me about what they do is they're supposed to create so many megawatts of electricity on their own, but what they do is go out and buy companies that have already done it and take their credits. And then they start doing things like this, and you're partnering with them. And that's why we have kind of a hostility towards you, and the choice of the property is just wrong. Looking at it, I didn't know it was Roy Williams. I didn't know it had some historical value. There's a lot of things out here that do. We find them all the time. We have a train museum. We have art things everywhere and installations and petroglyphs, and everything is threatened by people coming in and wanting to just, oh, that's not worth anything, cover it up. The desert's the kind of place where people pass through at 70 miles an hour and don't slow down and take a look, and if you do, you'll find out it's a pretty rich place. Thank you.
Okay, well, most of the stuff's been covered here. Tourism industry, people are spending millions of dollars here improving homes, and people come out here to stay because it's a rural community. And the current solar field out there, it is literally a black mark on the environment out there. When you look out, it's just this black line, and you don't know what it is, but it's just pretty damn ugly out there. I don't want to see any more of that happening out here, and I just see this as sort of like the first wave. And what I would suggest basically is that instead of developing these projects, you spend money on changing, because I know the state's mandated a certain amount that goes from these industrial plants, but that's just got to change, because this is just shown to be completely nonsensical way of developing energy, coming out to these pristine lands, grading them, creating a lot of dust problems, scraping away plants that actually sequester carbon from the atmosphere. That's like cutting down trees to build solar plants. The desert does pull in a lot of carbon from the atmosphere already. So spend the money on changing the legislation to make rooftop solar more viable, a way of developing. So this is just ridiculous to keep pursuing the same type of development. It's just got to change the laws so that it makes it more viable to do that type of development. Thank you.
Peggy Lee?
Hi,
Okay, we have an air quality dust problem in that area already. And I just want to say that on November 9th, as I was driving into Joshua Tree from, really LA, but coming that way from Yucca Valley as you come down, I saw a huge amount of dust and a high wind going from north to south from that area, and it's from the dry lake bed area, and it was going straight into and across the highway in a dust storm into the national park. And that was an incredibly bad dust storm that was coming off of disturbed ground, recently disturbed ground. And on November 30th, we experienced yet another one where the wind was coming from the south and west going northeast. And it was a huge dust storm because it was right after Thanksgiving, where there was probably one of the highest amounts of unregulated off-roading in that area that's ever been seen. So we have a huge air quality problem in that exact area. And not to mention that I think it's really stupid to put panels up next to a cement plant. It's just stupid. And obviously somebody's getting paid to do that, because I don't think anybody would do that if they really had to make money off of it. I just can't believe that. And so if you're studying which way the wind blows, that's nice, but when we have high winds, that doesn't always make sense. There's a cumulative impact issue here, and I'd like to see the county look at it. And I like the idea of studying the lake issue, but also the dust. What's going on with our air quality? We need to have baseline measurements. We need to monitor it, and we need to have protocols of monitoring it, because it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy for the people around. And when the dust is coming towards us from the dry lake or from the solar plant or from the cement plants that already exist here, we all have to go inside and close our doors and bring the animals in. So, and sometimes this goes straight into the national park. It's bad for the animals. It's bad for all of us. We need to look at this in a cumulative fashion, and the county needs to respond to this. I mean, it's a CEQA requirement to study it on a cumulative. If things are happening in a cumulative way, you have to take it into consideration in a cumulative way. And I don't know the exact regulations through CEQA, but it's a rule, and the county needs to follow that.
I forgot your name, and I apologize for that, but I want you to know that it's nothing personal. I know you're here to do a little check mark that you made a presentation to the folks about the project. The situation here in our area, and if you lived in the high desert, you would know it boils down to water. Water. To take drinking water and just throw it across some panels to wash them down and let it go into the ground is unthinkable. When we are in a drought situation, the worst in, 1,200 years, and I don't see it getting any better. And to think that outsiders come to Joshua Tree and to our area, our community, and feel like they can use our drinking water for their product, to make money, to send it out without any benefit to the local community. If you can grasp that, besides the other problems of the dust and being next to a concrete plant, if you can grasp the value of the water that's being used, never have I heard anybody saying they're going to be using reclaimed water, or they're going to set up a package treatment plant and use that water. No, this is drinking water. It's coming from a pristine aquifer. We're trying to preserve it. We're trying to protect it from being polluted. And to have outsiders come in and take this water from our community that we need to survive, to drink, is the number one concern of mine. So I hope you're taking some notes on these issues, because they're not going to go away, and we really care about our community. And I hope that you don't take it personal. I hope you take notes and you take it back to your supervisor. Thank you.
David?
Hello. Several observations I made with the Cascade Solar Project. I was on the Joshua Tree Mac from 2006 to 2012, and Cascade Solar came in, and even though we're in the desert, it was a very proper snow job. What happened was, first it was Axial Power, who was the ones making the presentation and nicing us about things. And then they were pretty much absorbed within about 5 or 6 months before the project even started by Sun Edison. And then what happened was they hired, of course, all the planning was happening with the plannings up elsewhere, not even in our county. And then what happened was they hired Dateland Construction to illegally grade. Dateland Construction is Indio, that's out of our county. And they hired them to grade. They'd had 40 years experience, but they didn't know that they were illegally grading and not following the 28-page grading permit. They were stopped for 2 weeks. The county planning did not believe that they were illegally grading. Building and Safety stopped them, but they didn't find them anything. They then gave them a 2-paragraph answer to a 28-page grading plan and continued. Now this is without tortoise surveys or anything going on. So they went on and did the 150-acre grading. They, the only people employed within this county were what we call the panel hangers. That's the only time when you have a lot of people involved. All the rest is equipment running and specialist control. So we had about 32 to 36 people hired locally to hang panels for 2 months. That was it. So the entire construction cost of this project was probably 95% construction cost was outside this county. We didn't see much of it at all. And that was one of the premises for this project going forward. And of course, our good neighbors also stole the water. Besides using lots of water, Cascade Solar, they were 35 acre-feet of water, and they still needed about twice that much. I looked down upon it 3.5 miles away. Okay. So Dateland Construction went ahead and finished that, and then they stole the water, wanting to be good neighbors. So you do have an understanding. We have extreme cynicism towards any project coming out here, and the county has been hit and miss on this. On Cascade Solar, it was a big miss. They messed it up every way they could. And I was also wanting to say, I don't know if I want to know the Richardson family. They're quite willing to sell out the legacy of their father, who built that airport. That was his love. He built those buildings. He refaced them. And the family's willing to sell it out for what, $300,000? It's 100 acres at $3,000. You can probably tell us what they're selling them for. Okay.
Okay, it concludes the comment section, and I guess we'll move on from here. Thanks, everybody, for coming and commenting.
Thank you. I'm not yet. I just want to say that 2 of our supervisors voted to not let a solar field happen in Landers. Our supervisor and then Lovingood, the planning commissioners, they did. And our planning commissioner voted no. We were outvoted by 3 planning commissioners who don't even represent desert regions. And so what you're doing is dealing with people who aren't even representing us, that our supervisors and those planners that are appointed through our community, essentially, have been overruled by people who are in government outside of our area. San Bernardino County is one of the biggest counties in the country, and there are people making rules for us with regards to all this, and circumventing all of our personal feelings. So I don't take it personal, but I want to thank the supervisors from our group and our planning commissioners.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Mr. Mellon, for coming out, facing this reasonably not too hostile audience. If we want to move on now to community officer and committee reports. Some of the delegates had to leave, namely Max Rossi. But if we could start down at that end of the table, if you want to fill us in, community reports.
All right, I really don't have a whole bunch. Just wanted to remind everybody, if you have an idea for who you would like to have come and talk, send me an email, elizabeth.carmen@gmail, and we'll see if we can get them to come out. The only other thing happening in Yucca Mesa is there's going to be, and this I really like because it's free to the entire community. That's Morongo Basin, free to Morongo Basin. It's the Christmas holiday open house at the Yucca Mesa Community Center from 2 to 5 on December 14th.
Joshua Tree, I don't, interest of time, I'll just make it short. I want to congratulate the Joshua Tree Holiday Market last weekend. I know they had some real problems with weather the last day. Fortunately, I got there on Saturday, and it was a great little place. I think you guys really pulled, was it your deal, Tom, that put that together? Yeah, you really pulled it together with that. Are you going to do it again next year? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Mike Lipsitz from Landers. I want to announce first that Max Rossi, who had to leave, gave his resignation tonight. He has been on the Mac now for just over a year, and he is working down the hill now, 200 miles away, 5 days a week. So a seat from Wonder Valley is opening up. And also tonight I heard from Jack Dugan from Pioneer Town, and he has some family issues that he's dealing with, and has also appreciated his year, a little more than a year on the Mac, also leaving. So anyone from Pioneer Town, tell your friends and neighbors, those seats are opening up. From Landers, this is Basin-wide. The point in time count is coming up. It's a national census of homeless people, and it is January 22nd. If you have some time early in the morning of January 22nd and could come just prior to that on the 15th to a training session, we are seeking to count the homeless people in the basin, the numbers from which will be used to determine federal money that comes back this way to help relieve homelessness in the area. And lastly, I do appreciate Marina West, who followed the Landers project, their flagrant disregard for the permitting process, who kept it alive, and who, with their own time and effort, went down to the Planning Commission, beat on the desk, cried, did everything possible to get some attention, and we know that whatever the payoff will be not enough, but it may be none. We want to keep the pressure up to see that doesn't happen again. One thing we learned in this process was that code enforcement is complaint driven. So if there's a developer out there abusing the system or not following the rules, code enforcement can drive by them 20 times a day. They're not going to respond until somebody from the public calls in and says, this is going on, and registers a complaint. You can do it online, it's very easy. That will initiate the process. So we need to all be vigilant and to do that. And we sort of realized that after the fact, a little bit late. I'm sorry, there's two meetings. Yep. Thank you. The 8th and the 15th, really. You can go to either. That's it for Landers. Thank you.
Hi, from Morongo Valley. We had a wonderful tree lighting ceremony at our firehouse last week, and it was very well attended, and everybody had a really good time and met all the new firemen that we have. We also, today in today's Desert Sun newspaper, had a really nice article about our fire department, our fire engine, our main fire engine, which is 11 years old, is kind of on its last legs. And so with help, we're trying to get help from from people in the low desert, and we've started a GoFundMe. We're now on GoFundMe under Morongo Valley Fire Highway Heroes, and we're trying to raise money to get a new fire engine. They are extremely expensive. The kind that we need, which would be a four-wheel drive, which we've never had in the past, but that would work better on our roads and wouldn't deteriorate so quickly, costs around $500,000. And obviously, 3,500 people can't afford that. So we're getting some help from businesses in the low desert, and we're hoping to be able to fund this through donations. And as of about 7 or 8 o'clock tonight, we had already raised $2,200, I think, on GoFundMe. So that's my report. Thank you.
Perfect. There we go. I'm going to have, first of all, a report that has to do with an off-road vehicle meeting that will take place on December 29th at 3 o'clock at the Palms Cafe in Wonder Valley on Amboy Road. And all are invited to attend. There will be confirmed are going to be Sergeant Steve Wilson from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department and BLM Ranger Kevin McLean. This will be a public meeting with representation from all parts of the Morongo Basin to discuss how both the Sheriff's Department and the BLM can protect our different communities from widespread ORV trespass on private and public lands. This last holiday season was one of the worst we've seen in a while. Just talked to Peggy over there. Major problem areas are in Landers, Wonder Valley, Copper Mountain Mesa, Cleghorn Lakes Wilderness Area, Post Homestead, 29 Palms, Giant Rock, and Marine Base expansion. Everyone is encouraged to come and talk about their experiences. So please spread that around. What day is it? 29th. What time? And where is it? All right. Thank you very much. Now, also in this newspaper was a really nice article, Activist Challenge Energy Blueprint. There is a Move On sign-on sheet that you can put your name to that was submitted by David Garman, who is president of the Tub Canyon Desert Conservancy. I think I'm going to see if MBCA can't put this up on the website so you'll have no trouble getting it. But if you have a good memory, you go to petitions.moveon.org/sign/we-don't-have-to-sacrifice. Which has, so far it has about 600 signatures. It needs all of those from the Morongo Basin. And the petition, titled "We Don't Have to Sacrifice California's Desert for Renewable Energy," calls for state regulators to perform a detailed analysis of rooftop solar and the renewable energy plan. Isn't that a good idea? Instead of just saying things off the top of their head, let's analyze it. That's all I have to report.
Thank you so much. For January, we have Elizabeth Carmen is kind enough to book Telecare Crisis Walk-in Center. Any other items for the January agenda? Is Lisa Murphy here? Okay. Thank you so much for coming.